on stage Professor Dr. Shafi Ahmed.
Dami I Gospoda, and then it's Zamen I Chesta, Buddha via Bulgaria. Okay, so my role really talk about education, my passion about training globally, democratizing health and education itself, and we all believe this statement, that education is fundamental human rights. But yet, we don't foster that, we don't use that. Our knowledge base is different, and it all depends on your resource and geography as to how much education you're offered. So we're going to change that. This is the paradigm I'll be talking to you about. So this is my hospital, St Bartholomew's. As you can see, we're 1,000 years old almost. It's the oldest hospital in the world, and we have a huge tradition of education and training. William Harvey, one of our alumni, he was the first person to discover the circulation of blood, the way the blood flows around the heart 300 years ago. Lots of famous people in our hospital. We also have the other hospital, which is this one, Royal London. It's the biggest hospital in Western Europe, which I work at. And we have the helicopter service in our hospital running trauma services. Let's go back 1,000 years. This chap here, Abdul Qasim, he was the first pioneer of surgery. He wrote the first textbook, the written text, a book on surgery, which became embodied into the human language for not 1 year, not for 2 years, 600 years. It's the only book we had in surgery, the written text. So this is the linear phase of change. We're now in the exponential phase of change, and things are working really rapidly. I used to worry about this. This is Bill Roth, a surgeon in Vienna, and you can see how he's teaching people. And it's quite archaic. A lot of people up in the stands who can see very little. This is not good learning, okay? We've assumed this is the way to teach surgery for hundreds of years. So my idea is to disrupt the whole method of teaching and training. So this is how people get taught. They sit in the operating theatre for 8 hours, our medical students, paying good money, and they're just cast aside. They're not actually engaging. So we're going to change that. How do you teach people in the operating in a different way? We also have a global problem. 5 billion people in the world do not access safe surgery. These are simple operations that will change people's lives. 2/3 of the population. So we don't work a way of training more people. We need 2 million extra surgeons. We need to perform about 150 million extra operations per year to make healthcare fair and equitable. It's what we all believe in and we drive. So this is the areas that are poor served by healthcare. It's not surprising, it's the areas in red, Asia, Africa, the lower and middle income countries. This is my own hospital, 1920, a very crowded environment. You can't learn anything in that environment. We learn by osmosis and diffusion and not about real life learning. We are connected. So for example, we have now Project Loon, Google, putting up balloons in the cloud to give high-speed Wi-Fi access to parts of the globe. Today it's going to happen, they can go in the cloud, last for a few months, and give Wi-Fi access to parts of the globe. The drone, Project Aquila, Facebook's version of, again, the same thing, drone flying around Africa and Asia, enabling people to have high-speed Wi-Fi access. It's connecting mankind, and we've got to use that to our advantage. A line going from North America, this is Project Maria, all the way in the North Atlantic to Portugal, to enable us to quench our thirst for connectivity. AR and VR is got a huge bandwidth required, so they're putting in these things to connect the world. Of course, refugees. Mark Zuckerberg has promised every refugee in the world access to Wi-Fi internet. It's enabling, it's powerful, it makes you free from restrictions. And this is the key message about my talk. Let's get back to that book 1,000 years ago. This is the world that we live in. This is my students. They're not into books. They don't buy books. It's a different type of learning. AR and VR is a continuum of learning in my mind. So if we go back, 2014, I used a Google Glass. I was one of the explorers. We got the glass early, we configured it, we streamed live an operation to parts of the globe. And the students around the world could watch on a mobile phone, or an app, anywhere, type questions in, which came onto my glass as I was operating, so I could teach them at the same time. On that one day, I taught 14,000 people in 118 countries, just by a simple connection and streaming service. Okay? And look at the world, it's suddenly more connected and empowered. And again, it's a solution to the problem. These are the areas we have to fix. And actually, a simple connection fixes that very quickly. You're meeting the demand for that education. We created a whole platform around e-learning, around wearable technology, and my students around the world watch this. They learn. That's much better view than you saw 20 or 30 years ago. And they talk to one another, peer-to-peer learning. They teach one another around the globe about local problems and healthcare issues and surgical training. Amazing. I taught this man how to operate. Does anyone know who this person is? Any ideas? This is John Scully, the CEO of Apple, who sacked Steve Jobs in the film that you've all seen, right? I taught John Scully, a 70-year-old man who used to run Apple, to do a small operation globally. I taught him from here. He was in New York. Simple procedure on a mannequin. He understands global health. He understands we've got to connect people. And the Apple phone, of course, is an enabler. Anthony, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, good. So, have you ligated the vessel? What's next? Red circle. There we are. Okay. And then we save that. So this is teaching people using Google Earth and a smartphone around the world. Just requires 3G connection. You can teach or help anybody around the world. Social media. Now, everyone does social media to a large extent. It's an addiction that most people have. I call it affliction. And Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. Interesting. But the interesting part of it is the depth of penetration. Facebook has almost 2 billion users. Snapchat has 150 billion users. Twitter, 200. And Instagram, about 300. So suddenly, these social media are not social media. I'll show you why. He says. So this is me in Bangladesh, training 10,000 surgeons on Facebook Live. One click, they all join me, talk to one another, and they suddenly teach one another. So suddenly Facebook becomes an enabler, because you're penetrating that market and accessing information. Why not use a platform that's not required? Let's use social media in a different way. What about Snapchat? Suddenly you see my Snapchat thing. This is my handle. The Spectacles came out in November. So I did a live operation using Snapchat, 10-second clips, which allows you to construct learning live by using Snapchat. I think we're measuring about an hour or so, using the Spectacles and live with my story. So this is anatomy, anterior spine, symphysis pubis, pubic tubercle, and the inguinal canal. It made world headline news. Time magazine covered the story. The editor came especially to talk to me about what we were doing using social media for an operation. But you know what was really disruptive? It was every newspaper around the world, every TV station. The most disruption I've ever seen ever is this. I was in Cosmopolitan magazine, okay, amongst the lingerie, amongst the shoes, it's me in my operation. That is disruption, okay? Even Cosmopolitan thinks it's important to train people in surgery. Not only that, Ashton Kutcher's my friend. I'm on his Facebook wall. He thinks I'm cool. He thinks actually what we're trying to do with social media is interesting. That video had 2 million views globally. It had 100,000 downloads within 24 hours. And I have 5,000 students on Snapchat. Every time I do Snapchat, I do an operation, 5,000 people joining immediately. And watch what I'm doing. I'm teaching them on a real life scale. So suddenly Snapchat, it's not about this. Okay, this is what you see with Snapchat. It's going to be about learning, teaching, and that. Oh, so let's go back 1 second. So this is the feedback I get on a daily basis. People are communicating around the world. So actually, thank you. You're suddenly understanding what we know. Snapchat's users up to the age of 17 and 25. 75%. That's your audience, that's your students. So you've got to think about what they're thinking of, enabling them. We did some informatics and analytics on how that operation proceeded in the first month. So guess how many retweets or favourites there were? Not about the reach of the global reach. This is about real people talking about that operation. In 1 month, we reached 56 million people. Okay, one operation. Suddenly, globally, it's important. You're empowering mankind to learn in a different way. And of course, this is why we use Snapchat. it's the filters. It's the most advanced, it's the biggest augmented reality platform there is. Until Facebook did F8. Now Facebook will take an AR and will probably destroy Snapchat and snapping. I think that's his mission in life. What about Twitter? Other social media. So I was asked to curate the NHS account for the entire country for 1 week. I managed the whole account, the whole health service. So we did the first operation via tweets, 140 characters or less. So we engaged about 10 million people, public, patients, students, just on a page, on a feed, on Twitter. It went incredibly viral. People understood we were trying to teach people in a different way. And we'll be doing the world's live 360 Operation Periscope in about 2 months to 200 million people to showcase the 360 feed on Twitter. What about virtual reality? VR is interesting, it's immersive, it's a different way of learning. That's one of my passions that I have, of course. And oops, this is a bit slow. I want you to imagine something. This is about VR. Imagine the whole story that I'm telling you. Imagine that you're a surgeon in Tanzania. You want to access the best training or the best standards and not restricted by geography or resource, which is the problem with education at the moment. Imagine Bangladesh, a country of 150 million people, right? Who again don't have a structured training program and access to training. Imagine you're in Gaza. I do humanitarian work across the globe. I've just written a whole project plan for Gaza sustainability. Imagine you're in a difficult environment where you're locked in, walls around you, can't leave, you can't get out. Okay. How do you train people in those environments? War-torn areas like Syria, Afghanistan, all the areas that we know about, but we don't acknowledge the problems. What about a school child who wants to embrace technology and learn from the very best? Or a school teacher who feels the students aren't empowered because they're restricted by geography. That's not right. That's not what we want to do in our lives, right? So last year, I invited the world into our operating theatre again to the world's first live VR operation using 360 cameras. I persuaded my health service to buy, Bart's Health is where I work, we're the biggest hospital in Europe, right? Western Europe. I persuaded my hospital to buy everybody a headset, good cardboard, everybody. So the porters, the pharmacists, the doctors, nurses, all had cardboards. Well, let's do something really disruptive. We create an app, you click it once, 2 clicks, and then you're live next to me in the operating theatre, looking at my team, how it's functioning, how it's working.
And we're a surgeon turning an operating room into a global virtual reality experience. The idea is to allow medical students and others to stand in the shoes of an experienced surgeon. It's just the start of more technology making its way into the OR to educate others. This camera hovers high above the operating table at the Royal London Hospital, bringing the images of surgery to places far beyond the OR. It's the world's first operation to be streamed live in 360-degree video via a company called Medical Realities. Dr. Shafi Ahmed hopes it will transform medical training worldwide.
Well, I think in the past we've done 2D videos, which are readily available. This is the new 360 immersive. So people around the world using low-cost technology with a Google Cardboard or headset and a smartphone app to access live operations and training.
With students all over the whole world watching, the operation begins.
Okay, we're live.
The surgery to remove a tumor in the colon may be routine, but for those watching, it's anything but. Students using VR headsets and smartphones can view in any direction and zoom in on the operating theater as Dr. Ahmed narrates live. They can even ask questions.
I found it really great because I've been in theatres before and it's often really difficult to have a good view of what's going on, so often you're pushed to the background and you can't see anything.
Dr. Ahmed believes this technology, giving others the experience of what it's really like to be in the OR, is just the beginning.
In time that we have to feedback, you're wearing gloves, for example, bodysuits, you can touch, feel things in the virtual world. And ultimately, imagine the time we have a virtual surgeon, we put into a virtual theatre, a virtual patient, virtual instruments, into a virtual operation. Before ever going to a theatre, the learning experience we refer to is the most immersive simulation we can think of. So on that day, 55,000 people watched the operation live, most of them students and trainees, some of them members of the public, across 140 countries. 5 million people were on Twitter talking about their operation, but a whole lot of downloads on YouTube. Simple impact on VR, your new way of learning, immersive technology. It's about globalization, as I said before. We're now working with haptics. This is me with a haptic device, allowing you to immerse yourself in the environment where on a smartphone, on the app, you can press a button that says, feel an ice cube. Immediately, your hands go cold, you feel the texture, so you feel an ice cube. Or hot flame, it changes immediately. And sensation now we're trying to create in that virtual space, so we can now simulate real life scenarios. This is where it's going, create avatars, etc. Next slide. We're creating a whole learning environment around VR. The app's coming out this week or next week. It's all ready for surgical training globally. You're all welcome. Ultimately, it's about patients. These are my patients. It's all my innovation. You have to take patients on a journey with you when you're innovating in healthcare, otherwise it doesn't work. This lady in the middle is watching her own operation in virtual reality. The week after the operation, she put a headset on and watched what we did. The patient in the middle, he was the first person to have the VR operation done live. When I came out of the operating theatre after that live feed to the world, I met the family. The wife and 2 children had watched the live operation of their husband and father in VR. How disruptive is that? I was amazed. They felt it helped them during the operation because normally you go away from the operation after a few hours, you're worried. Here they could watch what was going on live and they felt supported. It's very good. I was really surprised to hear that argument. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it's about connecting human minds. Thank you very much.